And you see this too. We've talked about this some with the Biden administration. Like, Joe Biden is still the guy that made it so you can't discharge student loan debt in bankruptcy. Like, his entire career solidly in the neoliberal mold. But now you see a few little dabblings here. It's not because he's different, but the political environment has changed. And so I think Newsom, who is totally non-ideological, he's just doing what he thinks is best for him politically, you know, finger in the wind. The fact that he sees this more muscular government approach as the thing to do to sort of like position himself for higher office, I think is very revealing about the moment we're living in.
Make California great again. I love California. I know that may be unpopular for someone like me. Look, natural beauty, unparalleled. There's just no contest.
I love California.
Weather,
I do not love LA. Not an LA fan. Sorry, LA people.
When I look at the weather charts in LA, I'm just like, I literally want to kill myself for living in But
like
anyway,
seasons.
I love California, absolutely. The problem with California has always been the insane disparity in living. It's like 7 out of 10 weather, 1 out of 10 traffic, 1 out of 10 taxes, 1 out of 10 like homelessness, crime. It's like if you could just give it to 4, you know, maybe it'd be more livable and millions of people wouldn't leave. Their issue is if you're going to do it, you actually have to do it. And so like the electric thing, you can't ban gas-powered cars and live in a place where I was telling you about.
Not have a grid that's capable of
Yeah, not have a grid.
There's no doubt
Beyond
about
the grid. There's, you know, not everybody lives in the city in California. People live way the hell out there, 200 miles away. I was telling you about the Ford F-150 Lightning. By the way, awesome car. In terms of hauling, though, its hauling capacity on that battery, not so good. So industry really does need to actually be able to meet the literal needs. Because look, I personally think you should not ban gas-powered vehicles. You should simply make electric vehicles undeniable enough in order to beat them in the marketplace. You should have it so the gas is always an option and make it for the people who want it. Very specific, right? There's diesel trucks, you know, guys who, you get the big-ass Ford, whatever, I don't even know what they're called. Some guys need them, most don't. But a lot of people do need them, and you know, I just generally don't believe in banning stuff like that and making it available.
I mean, it is interesting though, because you know, this is actually, California typically leads the way in terms of setting the national standards for car emissions. They have a carve-out. They're actually allowed by law to set different standards to try to deal with air quality issues, longstanding air quality issues in the state. And because of that, the industry is very responsive to whatever standards California sets. And you actually, you know, I mentioned you have all these states that are already following along. It's because you have somewhere around a dozen states that have trigger laws, not for abortion this time, but for California car emission standards, where once whatever California does, they just automatically adopt, because the automakers are sort of, because California is such a big market, sort of forced to follow suit. So that's why the EV mandate there is so potentially significant, because, you know, you might say, oh, it's all the way over this. I don't live in California. What does this matter? But on this issue and a lot of other ones, California, just because of their sheer market size, really drives a lot of change.
There's 2 risks to this. The biggest one is that we drop the domestic EV standards and we start buying the stuff from China, which is a disaster. I'd rather have North American oil than Chinese batteries. I mean, it's just one of those things where, in terms of choke point for catastrophe in the future, that's going to be an issue. So we have a lot of work to do. I was telling you about that Chile mine. We've got to get this treaty passed. We got to start mining lithium. We got to make sure that it's all domestically North American produced by U.S. allies.
And that's what the EV tax credit requires.
So it requires
the Inflation
as we know, things get waived all the way. Solar was required to be built in America. What happened? Political pressure waived it because they would rather meet green targets than make sure it's made here. 2, they've got to build nuclear. So today, very happy to say,
this was big
California Democrats 31-1 voted to save Diablo nuclear power plant until 2030. It gave us 8 years, but we need to build more, a hell of a lot more. If you want, I mean, California right now is burning a ton of natural gas, which is not good from a carbon perspective, in order to power people's Teslas. So there's a lot we need to do. There's also charging networks. I mean, right now, Tesla just opened up its supercharger network to everybody who's got an electric vehicle, but it shouldn't be up to Tesla. Like, we should have national EV stations. You know, Portland, apparently. I was recently in Portland, and the guys were telling me they have that.
Was there some money for that in the Inflation Reduction
Act?
Act?
Out. It used to be there.
It got stripped out.
It got stripped out.
What about in the infrastructure bill?
There's not much. I mean, the truth is that we are so far behind on charging infrastructure, especially for non-Tesla EVs, that we've got like over a decade of work.
Well, and that's one of the things I read too, is in California, they have the best built-out charging network. but still there lines to charge.
Yeah, there's a
are an
line
issue.
in LA for 3 hours sometimes to charge at a Tesla supercharger. So if you have a non-Tesla, like, good luck.
And this is the thing where, again, like, it comes back to this idea of sort of like, the market isn't just going to naturally fix those problems.
No, it won't.
You need the state and critically the federal government to actually step in and make this a possibility, not just for people who live in cities and can afford to put in their own home charger, but for people who live anywhere in the country. Sort of like, I mean, this was the rural electrification project. This is the dream of rural broadband one day reaching places like where I live. But this is the area where, you know, some pieces of this infrastructure are not going to be profitable to build. And you have to have a government that actually values this and is willing to invest the money and make the moves in this direction. Because otherwise, you're absolutely right. Like, having one piece of the policy without all of the underlying infrastructure is not going to work out.
Oh,
it
just won't work out. It will fail. Yeah, it will crash, and you'll end up with millionaires driving EVs, and then everybody else moving to Texas and driving a diesel truck. So it's like, I mean, I guess I'm from Texas. It wouldn't be a bad thing.
Sectoral bargaining's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, all right. So,
I'm excited about that one. We'll see if Newsom signs that one into law. I mean, that would be such a game changer in terms of like labor relations. It's actually something that some of the populists on the right like to orange pass because it's, you know, makes it less about the sort of big national labor unions and more, you know, if it's sector specific. We have something similar with the automakers, but we really don't have this in any sector of our society. It's the type of thing that makes government regulation less necessary, like minimum wage regulation, for example, less necessary when you have these sort of high standards set throughout the entire industry, and you also curtail some of the sort of race to the bottom that occurs in the labor market as well. So some interesting things to watch. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.